Right now, let's turn our attention to back to GCSEs, and Schools Minister Nick Gibb joins us live right now from College Green in Westminster. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, another big day for an awful lot of youngsters, an awful lot of families, including parents like myself. The GCSE results come out. 300,000 fewer top grades expected today. We're going back to pre-pandemic levels of grading after that grade inflation. We just spoke to Chris McGovern, who's saying that actually, look, we're going back to normal levels of inflation. There are already too many of those top grades, even in 2019. Do you agree?
No, I don't. I think we have eliminated grade inflation from the GCSE and A-level system. It's one of the great achievements of our education reforms. What we have to do is move away from the teacher-assessed grades that we had in 2020 and 2021 and the high proportions of high grades that resulted in, and get back to the 2019 levels. It is fair. Last year was a stepping stone to 2019, so we announced this nearly 2 years ago that we want to get back to this level. We have introduced for this year measures to help students, so there are equations that they're being given and formula sheets to help them not have to memorise as much for this year because of the disruption they've been through. We've spaced the exams further, and the senior examiners, when they look at the national performance in each subject, they will look at how it compares to 2019, and where they see a drop in performance because of the disruption they've been through, they do take that into account when they set the grade boundaries. So it is very fair, and I think it is right to get back to 2019 grading so we can restore and maintain, going forward, the integrity of these public qualifications, these public exams.
OK, I mean, for a lot of youngsters who've worked very hard, it's not their fault they missed out on so much education. So, question, I'm sorry, I bang on about this, and I will for years. I need to know from you that you do accept that, you know, locking children down, not allowing them to go to school for many months on end in 2020 and 2021 has had a devastating effect. It was the wrong decision, wasn't it?
The decision was taken on health grounds. We are dealing with a new pandemic. A lot of this, well,
it wasn't taken on health grounds. We've seen the research that the department came up with.
Well, we'll see what there's an inquiry happening into everything that happened in the handling of this unique pandemic that's never happened in our lifetimes, and how that was handled will be covered by, including issues about schools and young people as well.
All right.
But what matters now is that we're helping young people to catch up from that loss of education.
But you're not. Oh, that's not true, because we know that the money that was being spent to help youngsters catch up isn't enough. The man in charge of setting up that recovery programme resigned because there wasn't enough money, and the national tutoring programme, many schools, particularly those who actually failed kids the most, haven't used that money. The kids who are getting the tutoring are largely, you know, middle-class kids who were probably getting help from home anyway. Children haven't been helped to catch up.
Yes, they have. We're spending £5 billion on recovery, money going straight to schools to help them do what they think needs to happen to help those children. Well,
50 quid a pupil. They missed months of school in 2020 and months of school in 2021, and the government has given per pupil basically 50 quid for extra tutoring. I'm sorry, with all due respect, that's a joke.
Well, it's not the only money that goes to schools.
It's the figure you came up with.
There's been 3.5 million tutoring sessions have occurred because we introduced the National Tutoring Programme. These are tutors that they would never have had access to but for that programme. We're spending record amounts of money on our schools.
They wouldn't have needed it if they hadn't missed out on education for all those months.
Yes, again, we go back to how the government handled the pandemic, and the advice we had, and this will all come out in the inquiry, was that exams had to be cancelled, there had to be education from home. Of course, we kept schools open, as you know, for critical workers' children, for vulnerable children during that period. So schools were always open during that whole period.
Oh, come on, they were open, but most people weren't allowed to send their children to them, so that's rather meaningless. And they weren't getting lessons, they were sitting in the library being supervised.
The key issue, though, is that the reforms that we've introduced since 2010 have transformed our education system. When we came into office, 68% of schools were good or outstanding. Today, that's 88%. We're rising in international league tables in reading. We're now 4th in the world, the best in the West in terms of our 9-year-olds' reading ability, and that's because of the reforms we put in place in terms of phonics. We're rising up in the terms of maths achievement of children in primary school. So there's a huge amount that's been achieved.
I agree with you, Nick Gibb. You know, you've been part of that, and I've spoken to you privately about this in terms of what you did in terms of those standards. However, an awful lot of those achievements were thrown away during that period. We've now got 100,000 plus children routinely not in school. What are we doing to get those kids back? We know that year 11, the fifth formers, you and I would have known it from our day, sitting these exams a few months ago, they are the year that has seen the largest number of absences. What are we doing to make sure kids are back in school? Because, you know, even if the kids who are in school are doing okay, the kids who are out of school are the most vulnerable kids, who lost out the most, who most need to be in school to change and improve their lives.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. It is the #1 priority of the department. We're taking a huge number of measures. We have setting very high expectations of schools in terms of returning. We are working with local authorities. We have attendance advisors, working with families, getting them back into school. We have mentor pilot program we're trying out in the North East to see whether mentoring actually works as well to help young people back into school. We're working with the health sector, with GPs, doing everything we can. Absence has fallen slightly this year compared to last year, but there's a lot more to do to get children back into school. And the message I would give to parents is that this first week of school that's going to be starting in 10 days' time, they need to attend every single day of that first week of school, because we know that even a single day missed from that first week makes them 40% more likely to become persistently absent throughout the year. And we know that being absent will affect their GCSE results in 1 or 2 years' time.
Indeed, that's why we don't lock down schools. I'm never going to give it up, I'm afraid. Just final question to you. The NatWest chief executive, she resigned in disgrace after she basically divulged details of Nigel Farage's Coutts account when it was being closed down by Coutts, obviously NatWest being the parent company. Dame Alison Rose, though, we discovered, is going to get a £2.4 million package in pay, shares and pensions. Over the next few years, it's going to be worth a total of £11 million. Should she get a single penny of that?
Well, obviously, this is a matter ultimately for the NatWest board, but I would say this...
And wait a minute, and the shareholders, we're shareholders, 38% of shares in that bank are owned by us.
And so that's what I was going to say. They should reflect, really, on the circumstances of the resignation and to assess whether that is the right thing to do, given the reasons why the chief executive resigned from that position. I mean, but as the largest shareholder in that bank, the government, they're the ones who forced her to resign. It was the Prime Minister and the Chancellor who told the board, she's got to go, hours after they backed her. Shouldn't they say she doesn't get that money or we pull our funding? Well, we give operational independence to the bank because that's the only way you can operate. It was taken into public ownership, as you know, during the banking crisis. But as I said, this is a matter for the board of that independent operation, but they should reflect really on whether it was the right thing to do, given the reasons why she resigned. OK, I'll leave it there. Nick Gibb, Schools Minister, really appreciate you joining us for a rather miserable-looking college green there.